We also want to thank the Harlan Boss Foundation for your generous support in this program. Later in the semester at Regis Center for Art, we will also be presenting lectures by Sarah Noah Mark on Friday, February 21st at noon, Dream the Combine on Friday, March 28th at noon, and Jonathan Thunder, which is co-presented by the George Morrison Center for Indigenous Art on Tuesday, April 28th at noon. I would also like to thank everyone involved in the exhibition Jealousy Sway at the Rochester Art Center, which is in part how Rachel is here in Minnesota with us today. Jealousy Sway is a collision of artistic impulses between two visual artists, Ryan Fontaine and Rachel Youn, and two choreographers, the collaboration of Kristen Van Loon and Arwin Wilder, known as Hijack. Jealousy Sway is still on view and will be on view until March 16th. So if you hadn't had a chance to go see that exhibition yet, it's about an hour away. It's really, really great. A good place to see Rachel's work in person. Now to introduce Rachel. Rachel Youn, born 1994, is an American artist working across sculpture and installation. Youn sources materials with a history of aspiration and failure through online secondhand shopping, rescuing electric massagers from suburban limbo, and fastening artificial plants to the machines to create kinetic sculptures that are clumsy, erotic, and absurd. Haunted by their immigrant father's pursuit of the American dream, the work identifies with the replica that earnestly describes to be real and the failed object that simulates care and intimacy. Solo exhibitions include Soy Capitan in Berlin, Night Gallery in Los Angeles, Sergeant's Daughters in New York, Hair and Nails in Minneapolis, and the Contemporary Art Museum in St. Louis. Their work has been exhibited internationally in Hong Kong, Rome, Berlin, London, Turin, and Rotterdam, amongst others. Youn is a recipient of the Lighthouse Works Fellowship, Vermont Studio Center Fellowship, and the 2020 Great Rivers Biennial Award. They received their BFA from Washington University in St. Louis and their MFA at Yale School of Art in New Haven, Connecticut. Youn's work has been reviewed in Art News, Vogue, LA Review of Books, Artillery Magazine, Elephant, amongst others. In 2025, they will exhibit at Alice Amati in London, G Gallery in Seoul, South Korea, and will attend the Bemis Center Artist in Residence program. Really exciting. Please help me welcome Rachel Youn. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much to Matthew, the faculty and staff, and the students here for the invitation, just the opportunity to travel back to Minneapolis, and also for making it a really engaging week. Like, it's just been amazing conversation after conversation. I know it's like really early in the semester too, so like the vibes might be sleepy, but yeah, it's just been really, really fun. So yeah, I realized I haven't given like an in-person artist talk in like a few years, and I'm like kind of nervous. So, and I also kind of restructured my talk to be more thematic than chronological. So this is also a little fresh for me, which when people say that when they give talks, I'm like, oh no, like here we go. But I don't know, I hope it starts to make some sense. But yeah, I make kinetic sculptures. I never like intended to have that like label, but I just really enjoy the way that movement gives like life and character to sculptures, and that's something that will be kind of an ongoing theme in the work and as it's kind of like developed and evolved. So this is like a selection of works, and I feel like when I'm presenting it this way, it could be like, I did this, and then I did this, and like there were so many like failures and just like lessons learned along the way that like I'm not showing you, and I just want to put that out there because I don't know, kinetics are hard, and making art is really hard, and there's been a lot of bad art made too. So anyway, I'm gonna start with a video. I'm gonna let it just play through. It's got like a music track to it, and then I'll kind of talk about, yeah, it's like a really significant piece to me, and then kind of where it's led me from there. So I'm gonna keep an eye on the volume so it doesn't like go crazy, but yeah. Yeah.
Rich finger, witch's face, black sequin eyes, bugle breed nose, constant dancing
I followed you deep. Church sales, Mustang wigs, estate sales. We were cave women, skin scars, stretch marks, body bruises, baby. Cool. So this was a piece called Gather. It was kind of big, like explosive installation from where I started with making individual works. The machines that you're seeing are all massagers, or some of them are like baby swings, but they're different appliances that I sourced through Facebook Marketplace, like literally just like messaging folks and being like, cool, I'll bring $20 cash, and like doing these exchanges around St. Louis. It was important to me to use things that were used and resold. There was kind of this narrative of being desired for like a purpose, which is to comfort the body and kind of like substitute the place of something like a masseuse or like a mother's like, you know, gentle arms like swinging a baby. And I was really kind of drawn to like the artificial nature of that. And just a lot of these pieces were, or like I guess the machines were, you know, cheaply produced like in mass, like in factories. And so they tend not to last very long. This exhibition actually kind of deteriorated over like the 5 months that it had been shown, and people could come back and see how things had been like destroyed a little bit more, including the fake plants. But yeah, the audio track also is, if I could just replay this without the music. Yeah. The audio was a collaborative effort with a band locally in St. Louis. I had them do this kind of like dance track, and I was also splicing in audio that I was ripping from videos of Korean church services, and it was kind of a little bit autobiographical in the way that I grew up as a pastor's kid, which was like a lot emotionally. And so I grew up in the church, and in the Korean church in particular, they do these like mass prayers together where like the lights come down. Sometimes music is played as a way to kind of like drown out what is like people praying like really kind of crazily. Like you'd see like people like crying and like shaking their fists and clapping, and it's like this super emotional time, and people are just like yelling out for like the Lord. And I was kind of trying to bridge that with spaces where other spaces where people do that, where they dance, like queer clubs or like concerts, and it's just this space to like release your body as like a collective. And also just thinking about my own kind of relationship and alienation to those spaces too. This whole show, it was pushed back and it opened and closed like in 2020 and 2021. So at that time too, like because of COVID, there was no way to actually like gather with other people in a space like this. And so it really kind of changed the narrative of the work in a way that like was completely unexpected to me. And I think added to it too, because it just felt like this social space. And I started to kind of see and understand these works as their own kind of like beings, especially in the ways that they behaved unexpectedly. And I'd have to like untangle some of them from each other, or like try to get them to stop like fighting in this like gallery space. It was super chaotic. I had the chance to also bring this work to Minneapolis here back in 2021 to Hair and Nails Gallery. So I'll play a little clip of that. I also commissioned Boo Boo, who is a musician and DJ here, to create this really amazing audio track. And I've had the opportunity to kind of like shift this work based on the different spaces it's been in. If you've been to Hair and Nails, like downstairs, it's like a basement, and I really appreciated this kind of like descent into the space and kind of how it was like a tighter space, so you kind of felt more immersed in it, and it felt like this like underground scene. So yeah, thanks to Ryan and Kristen for bringing me here for that. I will also say like the kind of early conception of this show, like what I proposed for it was just so not how it turned out. Like I never intended for like colored lights and like a disco ball and for it to just become this kind of party, but it was something that came through being really present in my studio space at the time, which was quite large, and kind of configuring things like in almost the way that I would have had it displayed in the gallery and in the museum. And so, I don't know, at some point I was like, I think it needs to be a dance party and there needs to be music, but I don't know, how to get that all to happen. But it was definitely like a long process. And I was really shy when I brought it to the curators. I was like, it's gonna be a dance party. They're like, cool. It's also really fun playing with the approach of the space too. Like the original installation, it was in this gallery that was kind of like tucked in the back of the museum. So you heard it way before you saw it. And I like the way that it kind of drew people in, and you'd like round this corner and, go from like white wall gallery space to like whatever this is. Yeah, and I'm also going to highlight, this is just like a clip from the first performance of Jealousy Sway, which is currently up at the Rochester Art Center. Hijacked did their second performance this past Sunday, which was so amazing to see. They choreographed this dance to the work. And again, just kind of really added to like this social charge of the work, like especially like holding the flowers or kind of responding to the motion, really just like built upon this like interest I have in the anthropomorphic and the ability to kind of sympathize and pity and laugh with and be in space with objects that are obviously not alive or like organic, but feel like they have their own kind of characteristics. It kind of felt like this like romance, like dance date thing. So I don't know, I kind of added in these slides where I just wanted to like meditate on like phrases that have just like been in my mind for the past few years. There was kind of a tonal shift in the work where I was, before they were kind of these like wild sculptures and they dance really freely, but then, I don't know, a shift happened for me too, where I started kind of restraining the pieces and thinking more about the relationship of restraint to pleasure and to pain as well, and kind of just complicating that, whatever like dichotomy is presented. So I'm just sharing a few just like clips from the show I had in New York, I guess 2.5 years ago, where I was actually kind of caging the works in different just like metal structures, or just more junk that I bought off of Facebook Marketplace, let's be real, but just things I was drawn to, things that kind of also had like masculine edges to them, or like were very like gym vibes, like pull-up bars, or like my broken car jack, or just like different kind of like exercise apparatuses. Like that's for like squeezing. You put that in your legs and you squeeze your thighs together. I'm pretty sure. But like on its own, I'm like, that looks really strange. This one is like, it's the most medieval thing I've ever seen. It's like a hand exerciser. Like you put your fingers through and you clench and I guess build up strength in your hands. Allegedly, I don't know. But yeah, it was really kind of fun to just play with like these wrestling and clashing moments, which of course also deteriorated the pieces faster. I have been accused of plant torture on the internet. Like people really did think I was using real plants, which I was like, they would never last long enough. But I guess through these accusations, I did think, it was really funny that, people found sympathy again for like plants, again, things that are not like people or like animals even though it was like the most hypocritical thing is like, I was like, have you ever had a salad before? Like, is that not plant torture? But yeah, so I just kind of started playing more with just creating these relationships and kind of, linking the pieces together. And yeah, these weird machines are like baby swings, like they're like pre-programmed buttons where you can do like these different swaying motions. And obviously there would be like a cradle or like a receptacle for a baby, but I put these fake yucca plants on it. Kind of also a shout out to, I grew up in New Mexico. And so, yeah. Yeah, and then they also just started getting a little erotic, kind of a lot more erotic, a little BDSM, like a little bit, I don't know, there was so much that was kind of like emerging out of the works that I didn't really plan for. I usually know I'm in the right path in studio if whatever I make and turn on kind of is like embarrassing for me to look at. Like I'm just like, okay, now I have to take this to the gallery and be like, this is the work. But I do enjoy having that kind of like surprise to it and for the work to kind of take on its own characteristic. I don't know, I started introducing some more materials, like this structure is like for those like horse bouncy toy, like it's like for kids, and you like there's normally like a horse in it, and you and the springs I guess simulate riding, and also bird spikes too. Like I kind of liked adding this like element of like keep away, or just something with a little bit more edge to it, I guess, along with this like inviting motion of like whatever that is gesturing to y'all. I don't know. Yeah, here's more phrases, I guess, kind of through further thinking about the kind of this idea of use value, like again, because I'm using these machines that simulate human motion, but obviously they're being resold on the internet to, mainly to me, is that there was this kind of desire and like a function that ultimately fell flat, right? Like these massagers, they do these like very repetitive motions, they just don't quite do it the same as like a masseuse does, like, which is like a living person and a laborer and like a service. And something that requires like getting to know the body and to kind of like meet somebody halfway. And it takes vulnerability also. And so I just kind of started thinking more about like parasocial relationships, which is basically like a fancy way of saying like just your relationship to somebody you like don't like know well or like have only kind of a limited time with. And also just thinking about like things like hysteria also kind of coming from these motions. This is like a vibrating exercise platform. I don't know, there's really funny infomercials about a lot of this stuff, but the kind of idea is that you stand on it and it shakes you while you do exercises, and I guess is supposed to like burn more fat. Yeah, I'm also just interested in like these kind of promises of these products, like they're like instant, like they're like, if you buy this, like your life will change. Like if I buy the treadmill, suddenly I will become a runner. And I'm like, that's not true. It's gonna become a thing for me to like hang my clothes on. But yeah, I also started seeing my work in relationship to like flower arrangement too, like for obvious reasons, but like specifically ikebana, which is something that my grandmother practiced, but it's like this very like controlling way of kind of highlighting beauty and like nature, but also can be quite violent too, like in terms of like flower frogs are these like metal bases that you like basically like impale like the stems onto. And this piece in particular, I did actually use driftwood pieces that came from my grandmother's like collection of materials she would use for the flower arrangements. And I was using, these are also more bird spikes, which are the spiky base, which I was kind of using to emulate the flower frogs. But yeah, kind of more, I just really thought more about like the performative nature of the work. And also it was about my relationship to control with my own pieces. Like I wanted them to continue to work because getting a call from a gallery or a museum being like, this thing broke is not fun. But that, you know, they were really methodically like controlled. Yeah, and also that extends to the fake plants. Like fake plants are supposed to present this like idealized image of a perfect bloom or things in peak, whereas really, you know, like as we know, like they die, as I know from me trying to keep plants also, which goes really poorly. But that it's like a temporary cycle and that you cannot get it to last forever and that you can preserve it in plastic, but there's always this kind of understanding that like this isn't real, it's like a simulation. Yeah, so I'm trying to like make sure I'm reading my notes. But yeah, it's again, like there's like also a disappointment for myself when things, you know, naturally break or like go through entropy, especially with kinetic work. Yeah, I also started kind of thinking more broadly about, again, this idea of parasocial relationships, but also just how we view others, like as, do we see each other as people or as functions? And I think, you know, that came a lot from me analyzing my own relationship to like womanhood and like the kind of ideals that I was raised with, where basically I was told like your job is to be like a good wife and a good mother, and I was like, no. And also that my kind of being was essentialized into duty or into actions and into service basically. And yeah, I just really wanted to kind of question that and also let pieces kind of have their own life, changing from function, from having to comfort the body or to like comfort a baby, for example, and just again express their own feelings, eroticisms. This piece in particular was from a show that I like threw everything from grad school, like my apartment, my studio, into storage, and like went to Berlin and was basically making a show from everything sourced there, which I found this bread slicer that it's kind of like a table saw, but but for bread, which is like the most German thing ever. Like their bread's really dense, so they have to like cut it and they want it to be like perfect every single time. But yeah, there was also, there's so many of these appliances have a relationship to the domestic and to like kind of take to ease like a task or like a chore. And I had found these glass flowers that I basically like I clipped all the wire and like cleaned them and then kind of restrung them into this like I don't know, like long strand. And the audio isn't like high enough, but there's kind of this scraping that's happening too, where like the glass is just kind of traipsing along the surface of this like saw blade. And I kind of wanted to let it be more precarious. Like there is this threat that like the blade could catch a floral petal and just kind of crush the entire thing, which it hasn't yet, but we'll see. But it for me, like it also created this anxiety, like that I always have this like anxious relationship to my work, again, because I'm powering it, I want it to work. And this scraping sound just, just really kind of built this feeling for me. And again, kind of thinking about hysteria and, this really, the way I'm saying this is very like generalized, but like the kind of notion that like, women especially were kind of tasked with doing like the same thing over and over again. Like you cook, you clean, you take care of the kids. And then there was like this feeling of like, why did my wife go crazy? Like, why did she like try to hurt herself or like, like act really strange socially? Like there's such an interesting relationship to like mental illness and also and routine and to repetition. And so that was something I was kind of more gesturing towards with this work. And yeah, again, kind of getting back to that existential question of relationships and social relationships, like the kind of, do we still see each other as people if they stop doing what we expect them to do? Do you still love your wife if she like goes crazy? I don't know. And that is also, me kind of meditating on the relationship of myself to my own family and like the women in my family and mental illness and proper behavior and, the kind of presentation that you put out to the world, where you have to, smile and act right. I think about, my own mother being a pastor's wife and like how you're not really like allowed to have problems publicly the same way because of that level of scrutiny. This one got kind of weird. Sorry. Again, just weighing in kind of my own relationship to work and function, and also just that feeling of like I'm not a machine and I cannot like always be perfect and do everything consistently, and allowing the same kind of like grace to like my own work too. This is another baby swing that's been pretty like rendered down to parts, but yeah, there was again, this is a piece from the show in Germany, and there's very specific German words for things, and I can't remember exactly what it is, right? And I don't want to botch it, but there's this term for like birthing machine, and it's kind of this term coined by feminists where they're really addressing this idea that like your job is to just like crank out babies and like take care of them. So taking away the kind of the cradle and like the actual function of what this is supposed to do, and just letting it be this weird flower thing that kind of hypnotically dances back and forth. I don't know, it was a kind of fun revelation for me. Also note that there's like shoes coming in the work. I don't know, like it was like an arbitrary decision that happened. You might, maybe a few slides ago, there was something that had dog Crocs on it. They were yellow. Again, weird studio decision that made sense later, but it was kind of me giving more characteristics to the work where I was letting them be more anthropomorphic and yeah, it was really silly. But somebody was like, "Why did you put dog Crocs on?" And I was like, I don't know. It just felt right. And also like rollerblades too, like, and I think that also kind of stemmed from this idea that like the wheels like help you get away or something. And yeah, there's more bird spikes in here. I'm kind of starting to like deconstruct the flowers more and kind of configure them in different ways. There are also some parts of this piece in particular are these like sleeve ironing boards. And I'm like, I don't know if that exists outside of Europe, but they're, yeah, literally just like ironing boards that are meant for like dress shirt sleeves. So it was really also just fun to kind of like abandon all my tools and like and materials in the US and kind of build work for this show that felt really particular to Berlin and to Germany. Cool. Yeah, again, more weird erotic stuff. I named that piece after a Sabrina Carpenter song. But yeah, I think that's kind of where my interests are taking me more is just to lean into the erotic. Like, it's not something I ever like started with like intentionally to be like, I want these pieces to feel like sexy, but they get their own way. Yeah, this is kind of, I guess, my last section. Kind of speeding through this, but maybe there'll be more time for Q&A. I can think about this phrase, take me away, which I first read on this body spray I had in like middle school. And I'll play a commercial from that brand in a minute here, but I don't know, I'm just kind of also broadly interested in escapism, and that extends again from these promises that products make, right? Like you buy this thing, you buy this Brookstone massager, and suddenly, you know, your back problems will go away, or like you'll feel rested and ready for work, and how even the kind of notion of like rest is tied into back to being productive, and just, yeah, I don't know, I have no chill and I don't know how to rest, and because that part of that is like this, like, you know, capitalist drive that is ingrained in me. But yeah, I'm gonna play this. The Take Me Away comes from this commercial, or from this brand called Calgon, which I am not super familiar with. Again, I just had the body spray, but I found this commercial from I think it's from the late 70s, that I'll play.
The traffic,
I can't read
the
that.
boss,
I
the baby, the dog. That does it. Calgon, take me away.
Lose your cares in the luxury of a Calgon bath. Calgon softens the water to leave skin feeling silky smooth as it lifts your spirits. The soft, luxurious, fragrant world of Calgon.
I love it.
Pamper yourself with a Calgon bath. Lose yourself in luxury.
I think through like sourcing like massagers and products like this, I've had to watch a weird amount of like infomercials, and like a lot of them have this like for the massagers, there's a lot of like shiatsu and like zen and like chi and these kind of words that are like vaguely like Eastern enough to be like exotic, but also they're being sold by these like, you know, these just like American infomercials. But yeah, I think by working with the massagers and working with these like kinetic works in the past few years has had me thinking a lot about just like repetition and how, you know, sometimes repetition is really comforting, like having routine is really wonderful until suddenly it's not. And then there's this desire to break away and to take a vacation, to escape, or, you know, again, to buy something that's going to kind of fill that hole that we feel emotionally. And so that's definitely something I've been thinking about more.
The traffic. I can't read that.
Excuse me. Thinking about more lately. And again, just kind of finding like repetition in kind of bigger systems now. Like, still, of course, work with massagers, but I'm extending that interest out. This is a piece, again, from Berlin that was roughly inspired by sushi conveyor belts and this kind of system of like the thing is like brought to you, or like a luggage carousel where like you stand, you're stationary, and then something is kind of like for a second of time like brought to you, and that kind of ease. I was also interested in amusement park rides too. Like I think I love going to like Six Flags, but I'm like, what is it about me that like wants to like be thrust through the air like super fast and like feel like I'm gonna die? And how is that interrupting, you know, my own routine? So there's a amusement park ride called the Whip, and it's kind of similar to this. You're like in a car, but like it just like drags you around like a corner, basically, like super fast like that. And for this piece, again, like this unpredictable moment happens once in a while where these flowers will kind of like kiss in the middle, or like find a moment of connection before they're just like ripped away from each other. And again, that's like something that's like out of my control, but yeah, again, thinking back to like being anthropomorphic and like the potential for connection. This was also built off of a modified walking band, which is basically a treadmill that was really popular during, or I guess is still popular like in work from home culture. So like you're at your desk for like however many hours a day, but you get a treadmill underneath it, and you can like walk and like do your Zoom meetings at the same time. Which I can imagine like buying, and then like I would never use it actually. Yeah, and I'm just also thinking about, as I have to go and kind of, as I'm building a little bit more of my own mechanisms or modifying them, and how they require maintenance, the kind of, I'm maybe interested in this question of like, is there pleasure in breakdowns also? Like, will I enjoy not working when I finally die or something? Yeah, I don't know. Is it comforting? And also the idea too that like we treat machines like they're always going to work the same too. Like obviously, like I know my body is not a machine, but also most machines have to be maintained as well, and that there's a lot of things being taken for granted, both in terms of like machinery, but also just in terms of social relationships, and like the idea of to maintain social relationships as well. So yeah, I have kind of started working larger. I hope to do more stuff when I have like facilities for fabricating. This is a work from grad school. I was thinking to like larger systems of automation. One of those being the car wash. And again, I feel like sometimes the car wash is this mundane thing where you're like, I need to like get this thing done. And then sometimes it's like the most magical experience ever. And like the rainbow soap comes down, and it's just like this moment of relief. And I'm like, they did not have to make that experience like that. They don't have to use color lights, but I don't know. It just like it's really stuck out to me. I hope to like build more parts out and do like a full tunnel, and I mean, it's like this weird, like, I guess, dry car wash, like, there's no water or soap involved, but it's scaled down from like car size to more like human size, like, I think the top part hangs at like 7 feet, so you could pass through it. And, without the function of like the soap and the water, it kind of is like, what is the point of this like experience and like kind of passing through it. And, very kind of, I've also been thinking about things like baptisms. Again, I grew up super religiously, baptized at 11, I was dunked in a tank of water, and supposedly I was like good, like spiritually. And yeah, how again, something like this, just like this instant moment is supposed to kind of promise like a new life or a fresh start. I actually reconfigured this work. Let me advance my slide. Yeah. To just for logistic reasons, like I couldn't do my color light stuff in this gallery for this group show. But again, I was just kind of thinking about like the escapism, the kind of exoticizing of like the tropical, of like these landscapes that are, they're like foreign, but also like blank and like devoid of people and like local populations. And I actually ended up using these shower curtains from Walmart. Because I know I've said this to some of you, but I grew up with those like gross, like sticky plastic shower curtains, and like the one I had like fish on it or something. And to me, they're kind of in this language of like desktop wallpapers. It's like you can like simulate this feeling you're somewhere else, but ultimately, it's like it's a farce. Like it's not real. And this was a piece that people could also walk through as well. But again, it's kind of like anticlimactic. Like, I mean, obviously for this, like there's actually like a show behind it, like there's stuff behind it, but this idea you can like pass through it and like nothing is happening, and that it's kind of car washes are directional, like you go through and then like at the end you're clean. But for this, it's like not quite that. Yeah, and just thinking about, not only like transformative products, but just like experiences too. Like, sometimes I'm like, if I go dance at this party, like this will fix me too. And, what is that kind of moment of release and relaxation? Is it for me? Is it so that I feel good to go back to work? I don't know, just things I think about. I guess I'll end with this piece as well. This is my first outdoor sculpture, which was a nightmare to figure out logistically, but kind of going back to like this like performative nature of especially like fake plants, of course scaled up to a palm tree in this case. I was thinking a lot about like signs that spin, which I feel like are less common nowadays, but I feel like when I was growing up, like the KFC bucket sign would spin on like the, side of the road in the suburbs. And I love this just kind of like way to grab attention, again, using motion, like a really simple thing. Or like people who have like those signs who like do dances and spin, like, and they're like, come like, to Metro PCS and like get a plan or something. And yeah, and I just was thinking a lot too about, again, just like artifice, and places like Los Angeles where palm trees are, like this kind of palm tree is not native to the land, but it was kind of used as a way to like, I don't know, for me, like create this like illusion of like paradise or, something else besides like kind of a desert, which, yeah, I learned that the palm trees there are also like they're dying, like they kind of have a lifespan and they're gonna just start like falling over, which is like so crazy. And they require so much maintenance because they're like in too dry of an environment that like the fronds just fall off and like crush people's windshields, or like it's like a huge hazard. And there's like a whole industry of like people to like climb the palm trees and like cut off the like branches that are like threatening people. And also I was like inspired too by like I would see yards in Missouri, like around St. Louis, where people plant like banana tree, like these huge palm leaves that could obviously only last for a little bit. Or the way that like in my own apartment, I would have like tropical plants, like things that were not native to where I was, and how they were all just kind of suffering under my care, but also because they're not in like the right conditions. Yeah, and it's funny, I for this piece, I didn't fabricate the head of the palm or the trunk. They came from two different outdoor palm tree manufacturers, which if one of them, like if you go on their website, there's like one where they're like, this is what our piece looks like in the snow. And it's like something super funny about that contrast. They mostly do stuff for like water parks, which I thought was really funny too. But yeah, I guess, yeah, I'll also end just with the idea that like I haven't always done like kinetic work. I haven't always worked with massagers and fake plants, but I've always been interested in the artifice and just kind of complicating the relationship and like the kind of value judgments we place on something being authentic versus artificial, which also is a kind of more of a Western notion, and that comes from like my own relationship to like identity. Like I've always grown up in places where I was like assimilating and felt like I was changing my personality and my own values according to where I was in order to like survive socially. But you know, that left me feeling like I was like a fake, or like that I wasn't a real person. And you know, I've really kind of just started to lean into that. I'm like, what does it actually mean to be fake? Is it like worse or better, you know, than to be real? And that I'm sure, you know, like with the idea of like imposter syndrome, like we all like have moments where we feel like we're not supposed to be there, or that we're like hiding amongst, you know, people who know what they're doing. So I don't know, this, you know, all the work like really does come from just like a very personal place, and just like it's pretty autobiographical, and it is kind of based on my own relationships, my own social failures, my breakups, like I wouldn't go out and be like, oh yeah, my work's about like my breakup with my ex-boyfriend, but like it kind of is. It's just like gets there in its own funny way. But yeah, I guess I just love to kind of analyze what is real, what is fake, like, you know, even just like natural landscapes or like national parks, and this kind of idea that we're preserving an idea of what nature looks like. But that's not super different than like, you know, like a lawn, for example. And that's also extended to things like architecture. Like I think about like federal architecture, and it's kind of imitation of you know, Roman Greco like architecture too, and what these things are all supposed to kind of signify to ourselves and then also to each other. But yeah, cool. I will leave it there. I do want to highlight that Jealousy Sway will do one final last performance at the Rochester Arts Center. That is going to be March 16th, 2025. Wow. I'm so sorry. It's like, it's almost February and I'm still writing 2024. Anyway, it's March 16th, 2025, 2 p.m. And I hope you'll come see it. It's really amazing to like be so close to the work and to the space. And, you know, to me, like, it is an installation of my work, but now it doesn't really quite feel complete without like Hijack being in there and like activating it. So I again want to thank Hair and Nails and Hijack for, making my trip possible here, and to the university for, being such a wonderful host. So yeah, thank you.